going to start questioning the next juror.
All right, here is Judge Gregory A. Adams.
What's the state's position?
Your Honor, the state would ask that juror 84 be excused for hardship. She's indicated that she suffered a recent tragedy. It would keep her from being a fair and stable juror.
Defense?
That is correct, Your Honor. She noted that, in her own words, a co-worker of hers was murdered, and that would have been 10 days ago. So in light of that, we would join in the state's motion to excuse her.
All right, Lord, based upon that agreement, I will go along for cause. 84 will be released for cause. 85 should be next. 85 next, thank you. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome, Ms. Green.
Juror 85, I did not note that you raised your number at any time this morning when the judge was asking questions or when Mr. James was asking questions. Is that right? Okay. But you did, in your questionnaire, alert us to a situation back in 1997 that you think might impact your ability to be a juror in a criminal case.
I don't know if it would impact.
Okay, that's where you let us know that there was a situation, and so I'm going to ask you about whether you think it might. Do you think that that tragedy would affect your ability to be a juror in what is a criminal case?
No.
Okay. Do you think that that experience, you think you'd be able to set that aside or distinguish between that experience and your role as a juror in this case if you were called?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any concerns about your ability to do that?
No.
Okay. All right. And your daughter is at the GBI, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And what department of the GBI does she currently work in?
She's in the support system, clerical, I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you think anything about, I don't expect, but it's possible that a witness from the GBI would be a witness in this case. Do you think that your daughter's employment there would affect you one way or the other? Okay. All right. You've heard a little bit about this case.
Yes.
Can you tell me, do you have any opinions about what you've heard?
No, because it's like off and on. You might hear it and go after on or something.
Do you remember anything specific that you have heard?
I really heard the first part
Okay, well, you mean the first part,
when he got killed.
okay, you remember when the murder happened?
Right.
Okay, all right, and you heard some press coverage then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Since that time, have you followed the case particularly closely?
No.
Okay. Do you have any information or any opinions particular to the defendant in the case, Mrs. Sneiderman?
No.
No. Okay. All right, and you are retired now. Where did you retire from?
From Fulton County DFACS.
Okay.
Department of Family and Children's Services.
And how long were you with Fulton Defects?
38 years.
That's a long time. You're a social worker, and you were a social worker. Were you a caseworker?
Well, at one point, I was program administrator.
That's what your position when you retired?
Right.
Okay. All right. Is there anything I didn't ask you about that you think we should know about your potential service as a juror in this case?
Okay, sure.
All right. Thank you so much.
Morgan?
Juror 85 at DFACS, which area were you in?
Program administration.
Okay, and when you were a social worker, were you in a particular area, children, elderly, or whatever?
No, food stamps, Medicaid.
Food stamps and Medicaid? And were you the program administrator over the food stamps, Medicaid, too? Did you stay in that area?
Did I stay?
Yes, ma'am, when you went into the administration part of it?
Yes.
Okay. So that your entire 38 years at DFACS, that was your specialty in that area? I hate to bring up the subject about your grandson, but this was in Fulton County?
That's correct.
Okay. And was the person was convicted, correct?
Yes.
Was it a he or she?
It was the he.
And was he convicted of murder?
Yes.
Okay. Was this a stranger to your grandson or someone he knew?
No, it was a neighbor.
It was a neighbor?
Yes.
Okay. And were you a witness at the trial?
Yes.
And you testified?
Yes.
After you testified, were you allowed to watch the proceedings?
No.
Okay. So
Yes,
you
I was, yes.
okay. So after you testified, you were allowed to watch it?
Right.
And was there anything about that experience that would impede your ability to be a fair and impartial juror in this case?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Number 85, would you follow the instruction of the clerk? Thank you very much. State's possession.
Qualified juror, Your Honor.
Defense. All right, qualified. Number 86 will be coming out next, lawyers.
May I push with Mr. Petrie?
Sure, come on up, lawyers. Bring in 86, please. Thanks, sir. State.
We have no questions, Your Honor.
Defense.
We have no additional questions beyond the questionnaire, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you. Follow the instruction of the clerk. What state's position?
Your Honor, we ask this juror be excused for cause. He has a pending criminal court case in DeKalb County and in fact has court on Monday.
Any objection from the defense? By agreement, he will be released for cause. That's 86. Lawyer's number 87 will be next. Striker.
Yeah, I believe 87 was
You're correct.
previously discussed and has been excused.
Have we done that on the record?
Yes, Your Honor, I did that yesterday afternoon.
Let's do it.
Don't know if it's on the record or not.
Well, let's do it on the record.
Sure.
Next would have been 87, but based upon 87's current employment status with, I believe, at the DA's office, both the state and defense agree, will not be eligible to serve.
Yes, Your Honor.
That is correct, Your Honor.
87 will be. Next number should be 88 will be next. Number 88. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Juror 88, you let us know about some health problems that you have that you think might impact your ability to be a juror on this case. Tell me first about your hearing loss.
I have constant ringing in both ears. I've had it now for about 7, 8 years. It's gradually degrading my hearing.
Okay. Have you had any difficulty understanding the proceedings that you've been involved in since you've been at court today?
No.
Okay. How much trouble do you have on a day-to-day basis in a setting like this where there would generally be one person speaking and there would be the aid of a microphone?
It's very distracting because the ringing gets louder when things get quiet. I hear
Okay.
it more.
Okay. So it's actually more difficult for you when there's a single source of sound. Okay.
Are you having any challenges right now listening to the lawyer's questions?
No.
Go ahead.
You have a heart condition as well.
Yes, I do.
Okay, tell me about that, please.
I have one artery that's 100% blocked. It's been blocked since 2000. It's treated for medication. Take 4 medicines a day.
Okay. Does the medication you're on, is there anything about that would impact you if you were a juror and for the most part seated with semi-frequent breaks during the day? Would that impact your condition at all?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, now tell me about your vacation plans.
have vacation. I have a family reunion scheduled for the end of this month, and I am the primary coordinator on that.
Okay.
What's the date, when you say the end of the month?
August 30th, 31st, 1st September.
August the 30th. All right. So if you're available by the 30th, you're good.
Not really. Like I said, I'm the primary coordinator, so I'm still making arrangements. Families coming here for the first time.
I understand. If the jury is working from a time period, let's say from 8:30 to 5, would you be able to do your other duties if needed, either before you come to service, I'm not saying you're on jury, or after you get off jury?
No, it makes it difficult. Some of the things have to be taken care of during normal business hours. 8:30 to 5 is normal business hours.
I understand. When you say, and I understand you're planning a family, you're.
Right. I'm sorry. Is there a question?
No.
Okay.
You may continue.
All right. And Juror 88, you raised your card this morning when the judge asked if you had or had expressed an opinion about this case. Do you have an opinion about this case?
I do.
Okay, what's your opinion?
I tend to believe there's some, how do I phrase it?
As clear as you can. That's fine. Just let it roll off the lips.
I'm sorry?
Just let it roll off your lips.
No, it doesn't roll off that way. There's a man that's passed away, and I tend to believe that, you know, the lady in front of us has had something to do with that.
Okay. And what leads you to that opinion?
Just from what I've heard on the news, the situation with the daycare where he was actually, I don't know if he was killed at the daycare, or I think he was, you know, going to the daycare to get his kids or something.
Okay. Would you say that you followed this case closely?
I followed it.
You followed it?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have opinions or do you have information that you've gotten from the media or some other source about the defendant in particular, as opposed to just the situation?
Information on the media about the perjury tends to lead me to believe that there's some guilt there. But the gentleman that's incarcerated now, being accused of murder and then found insane, I don't know how much influence is involved in that, but I tend to think there would have been some on the part of the defendant.
Okay. Okay. And you understand that, you know, what you see in the media, that's not evidence.
I'm sorry?
What you see in the media, that's not evidence.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay. And the jurors in this case would have to base their verdict on just the evidence that they hear in the courtroom.
Okay.
Okay. If you were selected as a juror in this case, do you think you would be able to do that? To not forget about it, you can't forget about everything, but set aside any opinion you might have that's based on something you heard outside the courtroom?
I may have a problem. I don't know.
Okay. And you're being honest. I appreciate you being honest. That's fine. Why do you think you'd have a problem doing that?
I've had some recent experiences in courts that makes me believe that all the evidence that's presented is not necessarily what needs to be presented. People are released based upon what they hear in court, and it may not necessarily be what should have been heard in court.
Okay. You think there's information that's being withheld from people who are making decisions?
I think so.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Juror 88. I appreciate it.
Mr. Morgan?
You understand that jurors can only make their decisions based on what they hear in court, is that correct?
I do understand that.
Okay. When you filled out the questionnaire, the question was asked, do you have any religious, moral, or ethical convictions that would affect your ability to pass judgment on the defendant? And your answer was, yes, my ability is affected by my moral and ethical beliefs that this person has had something to do with the death of her husband. That was your feelings on Friday. Is that still your feelings today?
Still my feeling.
Okay. And because of those feelings, do you believe it would affect your impartiality as a juror in this case?
I believe so.
No further questions, Judge.
Anything else on the state?
No, Your Honor.
Juror number 88, you may follow the instruction of the clerk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Space position.
State will move to excuse this juror for cause, based on his fixed and definite opinion of the defendant's guilt.
Defense.
We agree, Judge.
All right, if there's an agreement, I will go along with the recommendation. 88 calls. Next will be number 89. Yes. 89. All right. Let me, let's do 90 for now. Lori, is this gonna be number 90 for now? Bring in number 90. Right there, thank you. Mr. Cross?
Yes, thank
You
you.
may examine if you wish.
Thank you. Juror 90, you raised your number this morning when the judge asked if you had an opinion about this case. Can you tell me what that opinion is, or what you?
I think it was just a result of hearing all of the indictments and all. I just
Okay.
hadn't heard, Colorado and all these things. I just made me think,
Okay, what did it make you think?
well, something might have been going on, but I don't know.
All right, and you understand, you haven't ever been on jury service before, is that right? Oh, you have? I misread that, I'm sorry. Was that here in DeKalb County? Okay, was that a criminal case? It was a civil case? All right. I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you to speak up a little bit
I'm
for the
sorry.
court reporter to take down your answers. All right. Well, you understand that the indictment, that's just the accusation,
Right.
and that the jury would have to hear evidence and be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt of the defendant's guilt in order to return a verdict of guilty.
Yes.
Okay. So just having heard the indictment, do you think that you have an opinion that is so strong that you are no longer impartial in the case? Okay. You just raised your hand just because of the allegations themselves.
Just hearing all of that, I didn't know that much about it.
I see. Okay. Well, let me ask you then, as you stand here now, do you think you have an opinion one way or the other about the defendant's guilt?
I don't know enough about it.
Okay, okay. Are you open to listening to all the evidence before you render a decision?
Oh, sure.
Okay. You also indicated that you wanted to change an answer, or that you had thought over an answer from the questionnaire that you now
That
want?
might have been the one regarding that.
Okay.
Or however that was.
Okay, nothing else comes to mind about, all right. Tell me, if you can, about the person who is close to you that has a mental illness.
Bipolar.
Okay. And who is that person to you?
My sister now, my mother was. It's-
Okay, runs in your family, okay. Were both of those family members, were they treated for bipolar disorder? Okay, and that was an actual diagnosis, okay. The behavior that you saw, or the symptoms of that disease with those two people, was it consistent or was it inconsistent?
You mean over and over again?
Right, it was, okay.
My mother's was much worse.
It was?
Medication is better now.
Yeah. Okay. How long have you been married?
Oh, 40-something years.
Okay. And I see that you.
70 soon.
Okay. You don't look it. You've been in Decatur for 7 years. How long have you lived in the kind of greater Atlanta area?
I never before that. I lived in Florida.
Okay, so all the other locations were in Florida. Why did you move to Atlanta?
2 children here and 4 grandchildren.
That'll do it. Your husband was a psychiatric physician, okay, and he's retired now, okay. And you have, your training was in nursing, and you worked in that field as well. Do you have, or what while you're retired now, what did you ever work in a Department of Corrections facility? Okay, did your husband ever work in a Department of Corrections
His
facility?
brother did.
His brother did. Is he in the same field?
My niece is a U.S. Marshal.
I saw that. Okay.
His brother was a physician, but he got into the law end of things and managed a prison.
Okay. And throughout your career as a nurse, did you ever have any contract work or any other affiliation with a law enforcement incarceration kind of situation?
No, never.
Okay. All right. I think that's all the questions I have for you.
Thank you. Who was that? Who's my question, Mr. Juror? Mr. Glad?
Yeah, Juror number 90, when you were working as a psychiatric nurse, did you ever have contact with folks who had pending criminal charges against them?
No, it was just strictly hospital. I didn't work that long.
Okay. Did your husband, as a psychiatrist, ever have contact with folks, to your knowledge, who had pending criminal cases against them?
He had to take calls to some of the jails and
Okay.
different things.
Was he ever called upon to give an opinion as to the question of legal competence or legal responsibility? If you could speak up, the court reporter
Yes,
needs to get your
yes.
answers down. Okay. How often would you estimate he was called upon to offer that sort of opinion?
I can't remember. It was an on-call. They rotated through the system and, I don't know, several times a year.
Okay. Were there occasions where he was called upon to come into court and
Yes.
offer his opinion on those issues?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever have occasion to attend any sort of court proceeding with him when he would have done so?
No.
Over how long a period of time would it have been that he would have had the responsibility, at least at some point, of doing that?
All the years he worked, and I don't know how many they were. He's retired now, but 30 years, 25, 30 years.
To your knowledge, were there times when he indicated an individual was in fact so mentally compromised that they were not responsible for their actions?
I don't remember specifically. We talked all the time. But
Okay. And were there times, if you know, and if you do not, that is fine, where he would have offered an opinion that someone was malingering?
I just don't, I don't know.
You know what malingering means? Faking. Faking a psychiatric symptom.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
As much as trying to hide it.
Okay. You indicated that you watch, I guess, what was referred to in the questionnaire as, I think, True TV or the equivalent of Court TV or some. Do you watch Nancy Grace?
Sometimes.
Okay.
But I watch a lot of news shows.
Okay. How often would you say you watch Nancy Grace?
Not, maybe 2 or 3 times.
Okay. Do you have any recollection of this case being mentioned on the Nancy Grace show?
No.
Are you familiar with a show called First 48?
I've heard of it, but I can't say that I've watched it.
You had indicated on the questionnaire in response to a question about anything that might affect your ability to sit as a juror that your memory was not as what it used to be.
It's not.
Okay. Mine probably isn't either. Do you think that would have any effect on your ability to absorb and retain information and be able to sit as a fair and impartial juror?
I think I could. I'm just not as sharp as I used to be. It's more details and, you ask how many years I've been married, I should know, but I'd have to sit down and figure it out.
Okay.
Because I just don't remember all the numbers.
Okay. Do you have any difficulty understanding
No.
information that is imparted to you?
Not if it's,
If it is done clearly and intelligently, okay? Do you have any difficulty or would you have any difficulty taking notes if you were given that option?
no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I haven't done it in a while.
Okay. And again, you said you did have some knowledge about this case, but an insufficient degree of knowledge to form an opinion one way or the other.
Really, no. I don't have all the details. No.
Prior to getting your jury summons, did the name Andrea Sneiderman mean anything to you?
I got up in the morning and read the paper and I watched the news shows.
When was that, at or about the time when you got your summons here recently, or?
Well, a little while before that, but then mainly
did you know prior to coming to court today the specific nature of the allegations against her?
I don't know how specific I could be.
Well, not only what the charges were, what...
Yeah, and then what was dropped, and
Okay,
that's about it. Like today, is
okay.
when I heard about Colorado and all, I didn't know all of this stuff.
Was today the first time you heard the specifics of the crimes that were alleged?
Probably.
Okay.
I guess so, yeah.
You are aware that certain charges were dropped, is that correct? Okay. You understand that if you were to sit on this jury, you would be deciding only the charges presented to you, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You understand that you would not be considering any charges that were no longer pending against her?
Correct.
You understood the nature of the previous charges?
I guess.
Well, what did you understand the nature of the previous charges to be?
Accused of conspiring to kill her husband.
Okay. Do you think your awareness of the nature of the previous charges would affect your ability to sit fair and impartially in judgment of this woman if you were called upon to sit on this jury?
I'm just not sure. I haven't
You're not
had
sure.
time to
Okay.
go through it all.
And you understand our dilemma when we get an answer, I'm not sure.
Yes.
If possible, can you elaborate a bit?
Well, that would always be in the back of my mind, I guess, that I had heard of this and that, and I would have to deal with what's presented, I guess.
Okay. Do you think you could set aside what was in the back of your mind and decide this case strictly based on what you heard in this court, including the specific allegations and the evidence in support of those allegations?
I could try. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Honestly.
Do you have, or can you quantify the degree of confidence that you would have that you could actually do that? And that's a hard question. I understand, ma'am.
I guess if it's my job, I'll try. I just don't know.
Okay. So you believe you could, but you're not sure?
Not sure.
Fair enough, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Ms. Cross, any follow-up?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Would you follow the instructions? Good. Thank you very much, juror number 90. What's the state's position?
As a qualified juror, Your Honor.
Defense?
Your Honor, this is a close question, but given her awareness of the nature of the previous charges and her inability to make a specific commitment that she could decide this case based only on the charges pending against her and the evidence presented in this court, I do not believe she is a qualified juror. She could not say that her awareness of the fact that there had been previous charges pending against Mrs. Sneiderman would not affect her during the course of this trial. So as such, I would move to excuse her of her cause.
State's position? Argument?
We oppose that motion, Your Honor. There's no specific guarantee required for a juror to be qualified, even expressing some reservations about her ability to set aside what she admittedly said was a vague opinion and vague information about the case. This woman has sat on a jury before. She's indicated her willingness to listen to the evidence, to be open to the evidence. She does not have an opinion that is so fixed and definite that it makes her excusable for cause, so we'd ask to keep her in the pool.
Number 9 is qualified. She'll be in the pool. Bring in 91.
Number 89, may I inquire about 89?
You may. Come on up, lawyers.
Jeff Hutlinger back with defense attorney Jamila Hall. Jamila, give me a sense of what that discussion before the judge was all about.
Jeff, what's going on here is that a juror was just questioned and gave very mixed answers. She said that she was aware of the case, and after getting her summons, actually started becoming more aware and looking on the news about it, and then asked if she could be impartial and actually just base her opinion on what she sees in court. She said she wasn't sure.
So it seems as though, and tell me whether you agree or disagree with this, that it is, that they really are focusing more on these jurors now than they did yesterday at this time.
Yes, absolutely. I think because now we're getting close to the end, they want to make sure that they're getting jurors that they know can be impartial. And it's been difficult. A lot of people have heard about this case. A lot of people already have opinions about it. They believe just because Ms. Sneiderman's been indicted that she must be guilty of something.
In this final wave of prospective jurors, we seem to hear more people that really don't want to be a part of this process, too.
Yes, everybody has an answer, everybody has an excuse, and it's just because sometimes people don't want to get involved, they don't want to have to make difficult decisions, and this is a case that's going to involve some difficult decisions.
During a break that you and I were able to talk about, when the camera panned to the back of the courtroom, we were able to see the family of the late Rusty Sneiderman, who have made the trek here from Ohio. It is the first time that we have seen them in the courtroom for this. How does that play? Does that impact anything? Does that certainly change a mood, perhaps?
Well, for the prosecution, I think it makes them remember what they're there for. Even though the murder charges have been dropped, this is still a case about murder. And so knowing that the family members of the victim are there, I think it helps the prosecution to stay on track. I think it also reminds the defense what's going on and what's really at stake. I'm glad that the Sneiderman family has made the commitment to be here. It's really important for them, I think, to see how this plays out.
The Sneiderman family was not here yesterday, and maybe that's why we saw an elevated mood from Andrea Sneiderman inside the courtroom that we're not seeing today.
Yeah, that's actually a very good observation. She might know, because they're there, want to sort of have a more solemn look, which we have seen all day.
All right, it's all hands on deck right now as we are taking a look at the pictures before Judge Adams right now. He seems to be giving instructions. What would he be telling them?
Well, there definitely was an issue, I think, between the defense attorneys and the prosecutors as to whether a juror who expresses sort of I'm not sure, an indefinite opinion about the case can be qualified. And I think now the judge is trying to come up with some terms for the last set of juries.
Do those kinds of opinions impact other jurors, as they are questioned?
As you're doing jury selection, the answers of other jurors can also shape your own opinion. And so it's important to think about how these jurors are responding. Somebody that might not have had an opinion about the case and listens to one of the jurors, for example, we had a juror that said, I know that there's a man dead, and I think she had something to do with it. A prospective juror that hears that can't forget that that's been said, and that certainly will impact their own opinion.
Yeah, that juror also said that he believed that Andrea Sneiderman was, quote, hard, end quote.
Yeah, looks like, she lost a husband, but yet it doesn't seem like she is your typical widow. And I think that sort of concerns people just from a humanistic perspective. That makes them think that there's something else going on.
All right, it is about 20 minutes before 4 o'clock. The news is coming up on 11 Alive at 6. We will continue to have updates for you, and let's now go back inside the courtroom.
Bring in juror number 91.
During the consult with the DA.
You may. Hold. Okay, we're not on the record. I think it's Mr. Light, my camera gentleman. I'll probably take a break around 4. I just didn't want to talk with you and your editor about the microphone, because I think it's an issue. So if you can, make him or her available around 4 if possible. Okay, that's fine, whatever, that's fine. Or whoever else, I know you're a pool coordinator, but not coordinator, but a pool cameraman, or camera person, I should say. All right, we're back on the record. Kelly, is there anything before we bring in 91?
We need to ask a juror a few questions.
You understand, Mr. Morgan? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, Judge. I was talking to myself.
Oh, okay.
We need to ask a juror a few questions.
Sorry, that's fine. Well, yeah, I thought you were talking to yourself. You may bring in the juror, please, number 91. Thank you, sir. Mr. James, you may proceed, sir.
Juror number 91, you indicated in your response to question number 59 about whether or not what you've heard about the case would make it difficult for you to be fair and impartial. You said that it would be hard. Tell me a little bit about that. Why would it be so hard?
I mean, when you see all this on TV, it's kind of hard to make an impartial decision.
Okay.
You already made a decision in your mind already.
Okay. On question number 61, it says, do you feel that you cannot or should not serve as a juror in this case? And you put capital letters, I should not. Is that why you feel like you should not?
No, the reason I put I should not, because I'm the only person on my job. I'm a manager, and right now, this is the busiest time of the year. We get students to come in, and the new residents, and there's nobody that I have right now that can fill in for me.
Okay, I'm going to work backwards, and let me ask you, before we get to the issue about the media, let me ask you about your job. What kind of job do you do?
I do maintenance management.
Sir?
Maintenance management.
Maintenance management?
At an apartment complex.
At an apartment complex. And you said you're the only person on your job?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what happens if you were to get sick or some sort of unfortunate incident befall you? What would they do?
I hadn't been sick in over 5 years, but what we normally do for vacation, we have a fill-in. He works for the Board of Education, and the Board of Education, when they schedule, he can't fill in for them.
I'm sorry, the Board of Education, what, sir?
Fill-in works for the Board of Education, and they work in 4-day weeks. And so it's impossible for him to fill in during the busy days, which is Monday, Thursday, busy days, why I need to be there.
So if you were to get sick or to take a vacation, and I know you hadn't been sick in 5 years, but if you were to get sick, are you telling me that they wouldn't, that if you had to go to the doctor, had a medical emergency, that they wouldn't bring a fill-in in?
You know, if it's possible, they can. If it's time that they can set up to bring a fill-in in, but if I break my ankle, that's one of them freak things that might be kind of impossible at the last minute notice.
Yeah. Well, if it wasn't last minute, if it were, say, Thursday, and they had all day, they had half the day Thursday, all day Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Depending on my fill-in schedule, like I say, with the Board of Education, they work at 5-day weeks.
Okay. Let me ask you also about your response. It would be hard based on the media coverage that you've heard. You understand that what you've heard in the media is just that, what the media has said about the case. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you're selected as a juror, that people are going to come in, they're going to testify, you're going to see things, you're going to hear things, and we call that evidence and testimony, and the court's going to instruct you that you are to make your decision based solely on that evidence and on that testimony. If the court instructs you to set all those other things aside that you've heard in the press and make your decision to render your verdict, all right, based on what happens in this courtroom, can you do that?
No, because in the back of my mind, I already formed an opinion.
Okay. Yes, sir. Fair enough. Thank you.
All right. If you can remain there, sir, the defense, Mr. Morgan. All right, go back on the record, Kelly's defense has no question. Thank you, sir. Follow the instructions of the clerk. State's position.
Your Honor, I believe he's not a qualified juror. He expressed that he would not be able to set his opinions aside.
Any objections?
No objections, Judge.
91 will be release for cause, consent of the state and the defense. 92 has been resolved already. Next person will be 93. Mr. James, you may continue, sir.
Yes, sir. Ma'am, I'm looking at your questionnaire right here that you filled out on Friday, and it says, based on what you've heard about the case or the facts as said above, is there anything about this case that might make it difficult for you to sit as a fair and impartial juror? Your response was the fact that Andrea Sneiderman had an affair with Newman, and that he killed, I presume, this Rusty Sneiderman in front of the daycare center. How did you determine that based on what you heard in the press?
Yes.
Okay, now, specifically in terms of whether or not there was an affair, you understand that that's just what the press is saying, right?
Yeah, I understand that.
All right. You understand that if you get selected to sit as a juror, all right, there's going to be evidence presented. There's going to be people to testify. You may see and hear things, and we call that evidence. And any decision that you have to make about whether or not there's an affair or whether or not somebody's guilty of anything has to come from the evidence in the case. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Are you able, and that's going to be an instruction that comes from the court now, are you able to listen to that instruction and follow that instruction and set aside anything that you may have seen or heard in the streets or in the media and make a decision just based off of the evidence? You don't think so? Okay. And it's because of what you've heard?
Yes.
And is that opinion fixed?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr.
No questions
Teacher?
for the defense, Your Honor.
Thank you. Number 93, if you can follow the instructions of the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you.
State's position?
I do not believe she is a qualified juror.
We concur, Your Honor. Move to strike the cause.
I will accept that agreement. 94 will be next. And 95 has been questioned already, and he's qualified.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Does that change our number?
No.
You may continue, Mr. Deere.
Juror number 94, you indicated that you've seen some media coverage about this case?
Yes.
Okay. News, television, radio, internet?
Not internet, probably newspaper and television.
Okay. And when were you exposed to that media coverage?
I guess the initial coverage that I remember was the first coverage was of the death of Mr. Snyder.
Okay. What was the last thing, well, when was the last time that you heard something about the case in the media?
Probably when Newman was convicted.
Okay. So, over a year ago?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I honestly don't know.
Well, let me see if I can characterize it this way, and if you would agree with the characterization. Has it been it's been a long time since you've heard something about the case. Is that a fair assessment? Okay, all right, or characterization rather. Did you form any opinions about the guilt or innocence of the defendant in this case, Ms. Andrea Sneiderman, based off of anything that you may have heard about the last case?
Not really, no.
Okay. On question number 54, it says, did you see or hear anything specific about this case? And your response is, saw the news reports about the trial reports of the affair between Newman and Sneiderman. Okay, now, you understand that this is a different trial, right?
Yes, sir.
And you understand that those were just news reports, that that's not evidence, right?
Yes.
And that any fact or anything that you determine to be true or not true in this case is going to have to be driven by the facts and the evidence that's presented during trial. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
And that's including whether or not there was an affair. Do you understand that? Are you able to do that and set aside anything that you've heard in the media about an affair or anything and make a determination based off of the facts and the evidence presented in this case?
Yes, I do.
All right. And you believe you can be a fair and impartial juror?
Yes, sir.
Can you think of any reason why you cannot? Thank you very much.
If you can remain standing, Mr. Clegg.
Thank you, Judge. Then the questionnaire says that you live in Decatur, but there are certain indications that you are affiliated with Avondale Estates. Do you live in Decatur or in Avondale?
I just recently moved in April from Avondale Estates to Decatur.
Okay. How long did you live in Avondale Estates?
Since 1998.
Okay. And you were a member, are you still a member of the Avondale Community Club?
Yes, I am.
And is that the facility near the little lake that is located, I guess, between
Yes.
Berkeley and Lakeshore? Okay. What did you do prior to your retirement?
I worked for the National Park Service as an IT manager.
Okay. How long did you work for the National Park Service?
Oh, 25 years.
Were you in the Atlanta area all during that 25-year period?
Yes, sir, I was.
And were you working in the IT field all during that time?
The first 5 years I worked as a planner.
Okay. Did you ever actually work in a park?
No.
You had indicated also that you were familiar with someone who had a mental illness, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Specifically, what was the diagnosis, if you know, of that individual who suffers from a mental illness?
There was no official diagnosis.
What led you, was there a certain aspect of this person's personality that led you to draw the conclusion that they suffered from a mental illness?
Yes, sir. He couldn't hold a job, and he eventually it led to a divorce.
To your knowledge, was this individual ever delusional?
Not that I know.
Okay. Ever report seeing things that other people could not see, to your knowledge? Okay. How closely did you follow the Newman trial?
Not
Okay. Did you watch any of it on TV?
no, sir.
Okay. Would you have seen recaps on the news at the end of the day on TV?
It's possible I may have seen some news referring to that, but I don't generally watch local news.
Okay. In response to question in response to question 54, that Mr. James just asked you about, you were very specific with a recollection concerning the previous case. Is that correct? Said something about, and I'll read the answer verbatim, saw the news reports about trial, reports of the affair between Newman and Sneiderman.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Were you aware of that at the time that the trial was taking place, or would you have become privy to that knowledge at some other time?
I think it was before the trial took place. I don't recall paying any attention to the trial specifically. I mean, I may have heard something about a news flash, but I mean, I just can't be specific about it.
Did the folks in Avondale Estates, when you went to the community club, ever talk about the case?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you follow circumstances surrounding the arrest and subsequent prosecution of Mrs. Sneiderman?
I heard it. Yes, I heard about it, but when you say follow it, I don't.
Sure enough, okay. Did you become aware of the time and place when she was actually arrested?
I heard about that, yes,
What did you hear about that, ma'am?
that she had been arrested.
Okay. Any of the specifics of where she was or the circumstances, anything of that sort? To your knowledge, did you see any newscast concerning her arrest?
I may have, but I don't recall.
Have you been aware of the pending prosecution against her in the period of time between her arrest leading up to today?
Other than I know about, I mean, I know that, she was being prosecuted, but I don't know any
Okay.
specifics.
Prior to coming to court today, were you aware of the specific nature of the charges against her?
No,
You heard the indictment read in court today. Was that the first time you became aware of exactly what she was charged with?
yes,
Okay. Did you hear anything about this case over the course of the weekend from Friday when you filled out the questionnaire until today?
I saw when I looked at the Weather Channel, I thought I saw the jury being questioned, and I realized that it might be this, and so I changed the channel.
I have to ask, Does the Weather Channel actually carry updates on this trial?
Hey, yeah, it shocked me. I was-
Okay.
It was 211 on Comcast.
Okay. You had enough sense at that point to think that might be what I've been summoned for, and
Yes.
moved on to a different channel.
Yes, I didn't find out what it was. I just saw
Okay.
that it was a trial.
You do have some appointments coming up on August 9th, 12th, and 13th.
Yes, I did.
Doctor, dentist, and then taking your mom on the 13th. Are all of those subject to being rescheduled?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you were to be selected to sit on this jury, your appointment is not something that would necessitate that you have to go on those dates. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement.
Okay. Can you think of any reason why you could not sit as a fair and impartial juror in this case? Okay. Fair enough, ma'am. Thank you very much.
All right, Juror 94, would you follow the instruction of the clerk? Thank you. Just follow the instruction of the clerk. Thank you. The state's position.
Qualified, Judge.
Defense.
We agree, Your Honor.
94 is qualified. Lawyers approach. Bring your notes.
Jeff Hullinger back with Jamila Hall, the defense attorney. So now we have the attorneys that are going in front of the judge right now to bring their notes. They're discussing what now?
At this point, Jeff, it appears that they've qualified several jurors so far, and I think they're at the point where they can take that pool of qualified jurors and choose their final three. So the judge is asking them to bring their notes. I believe it's so that they can go through and make sure that they both have the same notes on who they struck for cause, that they have decided on the group of qualified jurors, and then they can go ahead and choose the final three.
So taking a look at some of our notes today, 8 jurors have qualified today, and we really have heard more in the pool today who seem to have an opinion formulated about Andrea Sneiderman. Yesterday at this time we were sort of marveling how people knew of the case, yet they were not so sure about the guilt or the innocence. It's been a different story today.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, and it might be because jury selection is taking so long that some of these jurors that have been waiting around are trying to figure out, what am I waiting for? And then it seems like some of them have taken it on themselves to do some independent investigation and look on the news and see what this case is about.
Jurors also seem to be a little bit uncomfortable whenever they're talking about Andrea Sneiderman with her in the courtroom, too. That sort of has a different dynamic about it as well.
It does, and I think you'll notice whenever the district attorney is talking about Ms. Sneiderman, he makes sure to tell the jurors, the defendant, Andrea Sneiderman. He wants to remind them that this is a person that the state is accused of a crime. At the same time, it is uncomfortable for the jury to sit there and think to themselves that they're going to have to make a judgment on this woman that will ultimately affect the rest of her life.
So now they are going over their notes right now. Has the prosecution or the defense been more dragging their feet about jurors in your estimation today?
I think they're both being very contemplative and making sure that they get the jurors that they want. It's been very difficult because now we have so many jurors that have been watching the case and have expressed hard, fast opinions on what they think is happening here. So both sides are being really contemplative.
And the financial hardship is one that certainly has been a headline as well. They will receive $25 a day, and Georgia law is such that it doesn't stipulate that an employer would have to pay an employee while they serve on a jury.
Right, and at the same time, there are also not any protections for an employee who might have to be out of work for 3 weeks and then loses their job because they've been serving in a jury. It's just one of those unfortunate parts of the justice system that needs to be looked at. But as you'll see here, there's some jurors that have expressed that they have a financial hardship that might ultimately end up on the jury. Others, because of their financial hardship, both sides, the prosecution and the defense, have asked the judge to strike them for cause. They don't want a juror that's sitting on there so worried about their finances, so worried about not being at work, that they're not able to focus on the case.
We're both getting rained on
Yes.
a little bit here. raining very hard in Decatur, and we are underneath a tent that is porous.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Maybe we need to use an umbrella underneath this tent.
I'll get one now.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the timetable to make sure that everybody knows about that. The judge would like to have this squared away by 1:30 tomorrow afternoon. Friday will be a day that will be a dark day, so to speak, and then Monday will begin the testimony.
Yes. Hopefully, I mean, we've been going slower this afternoon than I think any of us anticipated. So hopefully we do meet the judge's deadline of having that qualified pool by tomorrow at 1:30. And then it doesn't take too long between 1:30 and the close of business for them to ultimately select the 15 jurors.
If you take a look at Andrea Sneiderman right now, you can see her in the pink sweater with her hair pulled back. She has been taking copious notes today. What is she doing? Is she just trying to keep herself busy for the most part?
No, we have to remember that Ms. Sneiderman is a highly educated woman. I think that she's probably taking a very active role in her defense, and she's taking notes so that she can confer with her attorneys about what she thinks about these particular jurors. They're going to go back, and once they have this qualified pool, they're going to try to figure out who they want to target to either get on their jury or to make sure that they don't have on the jury. And I think that's why you have her taking copious notes now.
She is probably taking notes as we take a look at her right now about specific individual jurors that have been certified. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And I think her observations will be helpful to the defense because she can also say, I think this person might judge me harshly. I think when I heard this person say XYZ, it resonated with me in a way that makes me uncomfortable. And their defense attorneys should take the heed to that.
Defense attorneys really do listen to the defendant then. Probably not in every case, but certainly in this. You think that they are going to listen to her? Do they think that she is measured and reasonable at this point?
They'll listen to her, they'll counsel her, and they'll both come to a compromise. I mean, part of the role of the defense attorney is to provide legal advice. At the same time, it's your client's livelihood and liberty that's at stake, and so they do take it. Ooh, there goes that rain again. They do take it very seriously, their clients' opinions about the case.
All right, the last couple of days, this has ended around 4:30. You think we're on target for that again today?
Jeff, I'm not sure. It's going a lot slower than I think, and with these breaks and the judge taking so many conferences with the attorneys, we really haven't got to the point where we're selecting those final set of jurors.
I think it really illustrates how this is sort of a mixture of gases and solids, and it takes different shapes by the hour.
Yep, absolutely. This has been evolving in an interesting way. We thought that jury selection was going to take a full week, and then we thought it was moving really fast and would have been done by now, and now we're almost at a snail's pace.
Yeah, once they got to the point where they were about 2 jurors away, and that was early in the afternoon, I think the assumption, and it was an incorrect assumption, that this would probably breeze through and we would be done by the early part of the afternoon. But as you can see right now, we've had a number of these sessions where the attorneys have been in front of Judge Adams, and these have been sort of protracted discussions about procedure here as it impacts these prospective jurors.
Yeah, let's hope that the judge is now giving them instructions on what they need to do to get that final set of jurors, because at this point they're really belaboring the issue. I think once a juror has expressed that they have an opinion about the case, it's pretty much set that they can't be impartial, and so they should move on.
Any other things that we should look out for in the next 24 hours, or sort of give us a little periscope, if you would, of what is down the road?
Well, something I think we'll see is that even though the murder charges have been dropped in this case, you will see that the prosecution still refers to the murder often, as if they're trying to have the jury remember that there is a murder involved, a very serious crime, when in fact we're only dealing with perjury and false statements. The murder itself is actually not relevant to the perjury and false statements other than the fact that it occurred. But you'll hear lots of questions about feelings about murder, feelings about Mr. Sneiderman, and I think that that's because the prosecution wants to remind the jury about what really happened here.
One of our favorite comments from the day came from one juror when he was asked by the judge if he was related in any way to the defendant, kind of a throwaway question for the most part. And the juror took it at face value and said, "You mean the family of man?"
Right.
From the beginning?
Well, I mean, all of us are related if we take it to the beginning of time. And so, I think the jurors are being quite good with how long they've been held in the courtroom, how long they've had are ready to take out of their lives, and I think that just goes to the heart of the jury system. Even though people think that it's a burden, that once they get that responsibility, they take it very seriously.
And jurors have gotten to the point where they watch so many crime dramas on television and in movies, they believe that they're well versed in how the judicial system works, only to discover when they are in the midst of it that they don't really know how it works.
That's what we call the CSI effect, Jeff. Because of all of these crime dramas, you have jurors thinking that they know how forensic evidence is actually going to be uncovered and how they're actually going to be proven and what happens in deliberations. And once you get into a real courtroom and a real trial, you see that that's not what happens. I think it takes some jurors aback because they really want to be part of that action that they see in the crime dramas on television.
But the reality is being sequestered for 3 weeks during summer is something that nobody really wants a part of. They think they do, but they don't when the reality is, in front of them.
Well, yeah, the reality is that sometimes they're just sitting and waiting for so long during so many breaks and motion hearings that it just really isn't an exciting experience.
How different will it be next week once the evidence part of this trial is submitted as opposed to jury selection? It will move faster. It will be probably livelier than what we have witnessed the last 3 days.
Yeah, you'll see a different side come out on the attorneys. Of course, they're going to be very aggressive from the start of this case. The evidence is going to come in and move much faster than we have been moving in jury selection. And that's just largely because you don't have a lot of conferences with the judge. They had a pretrial conference where they already went through all of their motions. They know what type of evidence is going to be admissible. They know which witnesses they're going to call. And so a lot of that has already been taken into account.
And the judge right now is saying what to them? I mean, why is this such a long conversation at this point?
Jeff, the judge could be saying, "Why are you wasting my Wednesday away?" At this point, I'm really not sure what's going on. I hope that they're finally figuring out how if they can use the number of qualified jurors that they have thus far to get to that final group. It looks like that's what's happening. This would also be the time that the defense could file what's called a Batson challenge, which, we might be coming back to the judge, and I can explain that to you at the break.
All right, let's go back into the courtroom.
All right, Kelly, we're back on the record. Let me do this. We had a couple of challenges, and I will deal with that separately. Juror number 69 and 89, they did fill out the questionnaire, and they did not respond to the notice to be here over the last day and a half, but I will deal with that separately. What is the state's position?
As far as juror number
69 and 89, they failed to show today?
The state's prepared to go forward without them, Your Honor, and so if the court wants to go ahead and go forward, as long as the defendant waives our right to have them on the record, then we're okay with it.
Mr. Clegg, or Mr. who's talking?
Your Honor, we have no objection to going forward with the jurors we have questioned and waive our right to question jurors number 69 and 89.
All right. I would like to deal with them separately. I will set up a hearing, a show cause hearing on why they should not be held in contempt, but that'd be separate from anything we're doing today. But I will deal with the clerk and the sheriff's office and picking them up and giving them an opportunity to be driven to the courthouse. So I courtesy of the sheriff, but I do it that separately. All right, lawyers, based upon, and we will finalize this, based upon my count, we have questioned a sufficient number of potential jurors, and as of right now, they will be reporting back at 1:30 on Thursday for the actual jury selection. Lawyers from the state and on the defense, anything else before I bring in those individuals who came today, before I release them for the day and give them their instructions?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Nothing from the defense, Your Honor.
We will confirm, we have confirmed the numbers at the bench, and we have communicated with the clerks, with the excuse me, and I will give them the same instructions about not discussing the case. What I will do, lawyers, let's take about a 5-minute stretch break in an interim between jury management and the assistant of Deputy Sheriff. They will go ahead and arrange those individuals who came today, and I'll give them their instruction. It'll be about 5 minutes. All right. Good.